Hey, thanks so much indeed for logging on. There is even more exclusive material and behind-the-scenes stuff about The Office on this web page.
That's the good thing about the internet, that you put loads of shit on there. Doesn't matter how long it is or how fucking boring it is. If you want to stay up all night watching something, you can. You will. When we went along to the BBC in about 1999, and they said, do you think it's going to be a sitcom? We went, yeah. I said, as long as I'm in it, we write it and we direct it. And they went, well, I said, no. I said, if I don't get the main role, we direct it and we write it, you can walk. And Steve went, in future, Rick, can I do the talking? He was a little bit worried that, as a nobody, I was laying down some ultimatums.
Specific demands from the off. But I think what was weird was, because Ricky had never set out to be an actor or a comedian, and he wasn't chasing fame, and he wasn't desperate to be on the telly, his feeling was either we do it in the way that we think it'll work, or we don't. And it's, you know, he'd rather go back and do his regular job than sort of compromise it. And whereas I was panicked, you know, I was thinking, I want to be on the telly, I want to be famous and rich. What are you doing, you maniac, you stupid fat old maniac? So I was a bit more panicked, and I was trying to kind of... But somehow I think his kind of forcefulness worked to our advantage in the end, because you need that confidence in a way to sort of see your vision through.
But we've sort of kept that up. We've never taken anything to get a stepping stone. We've never compromised. We've never did things that we didn't want to do to get somewhere. And it sort of makes you bulletproof. If you really can walk away and just go, oh, OK, we'll leave it, then, you know, the bits that you're left with are your vision, are where you've had total control. And I think that's quite important. Because otherwise you're...
Yeah, if you're successful, otherwise you're just living in your car.
Oh, dear.
The thing that interests me about The Office, which was so brilliant and in a way educational, was that it, you know, revealed the tremendous flowing emotions that happen inside an office. You know, a lot of sitcoms have to do with family, a lot of sitcoms have to do with friendship, and everybody knows all those dynamics. And then you underestimate sort of how complex the lies are that we tell in the workplace.
Everything happens in the workplace. I think the fact that it seemed small, that it was literally just an office, is exactly the point. I think you could go into a shoe shop or a place where they sold ties, and it would be equally compelling.
Because we were so naive, though, we were thinking, well, there's not going to be any actors that will be able to be convincing and real and naturalistic. We're going to need to, you know, grab people off the street. I mean, we had grand plans, you know, sort of auditioning in village halls all over England to find these real convincing people. And then we realised that real convincing people are terrible. That's why they're not actors. And that actually really good actors can just do an amazing job. And a lot of people always give us credit as though they say, was it improvised? Was lots of it improvised? But it's the actors who are just so good at making those lines seem real.
We knew that as well. It's 99.9%, you know, in the script, and so we needed people to do that like they were saying it for the first time, and there's the real skill. But we did want unknowns, and we kept to that. We didn't want people who'd been, you know, in soap operas, and so because we wanted people to suspend their disbelief long enough, just for the first 2 minutes, to think, is this real? Is this a real documentary? And I think we sort of got that to a certain extent.
One of the things that Gervais and Merchant have really got right, that so many people get wrong in comedy, in sitcoms, is that if you're going to have a character who is a twat and a bit obnoxious and whatever, the way to make them watchable is to make them also lovable.
I think that David Brent is probably a good boss for a paper company, you know? I think that, you know, he's big on morale, he's entertaining. I don't know, like, I think people would sort of be fortunate to have David Brent as a boss at that stage of the game. But maybe I'm just thinking that as a guy who I would just be laughing constantly at this guy, you know?
It must be really exhausting being Brent, mustn't it? It's you are looking around and at a room full of people plus a camera and needing to assess really quickly in your head how you have to be to please each one, make each one think you're funny, and each one respect you. And you can't do it, you know, with everyone. I'd be exhausted if I were him. I wouldn't have it in me.
I liked Tim very much. I really liked him. He didn't seem a million miles away from me in terms of his sense of humour or in terms of his self-deprecation and his... This is a dangerous thing to say now, but in terms of his wit, you know, I like funny stuff, and he likes funny stuff, and he sort of likes taking the mick, and so do I.
Tim's job is to just, sort of like Chandler's job was, to just be an observer of all of it and, you know, let us in. You know, he's the guy that is making fun of it and making comments about it and letting the audience know it's okay to laugh at the ridiculousness of this, you know.
Tim, of course, is us. Tim is the normal audience watching. And, you know, Tim's look to camera was sort of saying, are you getting this? This is what I put up with every day. So that was very important as well, because he was, you know, surrounded by idiots, and he was the sort of dissatisfied Socrates in a room of satisfied fools.
We had spent so long talking about the characters and people from our own lives that were like those people that we sort of had quite vivid ideas of what they should look like and sound like and be like. So I suppose we were sort of looking for actors that could...
Which turned out to be naive because, of course, for example, Gareth was meant to be quite a strapping sort of squaddy type. And we, you know, were looking for those types. But, of course, when Mackenzie walked in, that went out the window.
I knew from the moment I read the script that this was the one I had to get if I was gonna have a chance at having a career in acting. You know, I'd been doing bits and pieces of TV, and I've been slogging around the stand-up circuit for a decade, and this is the one that stood out. The script was just so good, and I knew that this was the one I definitely had to get, and so I had my heart set on it. Yeah.
Gareth said these such awful things, but in such a delicate way, and I've never seen it done before. I've never seen, you know, someone who really should be this kind of big old red-faced, sweaty bloke saying all these ghastly things, but it wasn't. It was sweet Mackenzie, who is such a nice person in real life, that I loved the juxtaposition of it, and I thought it worked brilliantly.
Subconsciously, he's probably disappointed to find himself in this position in life, but he can compensate for that by having these delusions of grandeur and giving himself a title and making out he's a bigger person than he is, more important than he is, and he gets more respect than he actually does. So yeah, the title is very important to him, and his desk space is very important to him, and yeah, his pseudo-macho hobbies are very important to him. They all make him into this person that he wants to be, rather than this little man that he actually is.
The first time I went in, I just read with the casting director. The second time I came in, I read with Ricky. And I loved that because you could actually, because I knew that he was going to play Brent, you could actually see things come to life, and you could see what road they were going to take in terms of style. Sometimes I went in for one script that I actually did like, and then in the audition it was like, come on, bigger, 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 think pantomime times a million, and I'm not very good at that. I'm you know, sort of a one-trick pony, and kind of I'm always asked to sort of, you know, speak up. And so The Office was sort of perfect for me because I could just sort of kind of be myself.
I do think it is one of the great casting triumphs of British television. I mean, I keep being haunted by that sense of how revolutionary the casting seemed and the performance style. But every single one of those characters is so perfectly cast, and in a sort of new, informal way. It's not a big, rounded, performed thing. It was just a way of finding people who would fit that style perfectly. And when you do cast things, you realise that you're always casting for style. Someone can come in and be very funny, but they're not right for you. they're funny in a slightly different way. Their tone is slightly bigger or smaller. And I think the perfection of the casting, you know, all credit has to go to them for that, for how perfect everybody was, as it were, right down to the glory of Keith.